Thank you very much. Thank you to CIHEAM and to CIHEAM for inviting the ministry and inviting myself personally to share with you this interesting seminar. With this, I think, a top 10 topic regarding agriculture and climate change. And just for introduce the bueno, la paso con el clic, ya está. Yes, just to give a little bit of context that I think, of course, you all have in your minds. I would like to say that, of course, the society, citizens are increasing their environmental concerns. Of course, they want to eat 3 times every day, but at the same time, they are really asking themselves now how it's produced, what the foods they are eating at least 3 times a day. So that's the reasons that, of course, all the society is increasing their concern about the climate change. But in our subject, specific subject of agriculture, we have to have in mind both things: the need to feed the world and the need to do it in a more sustainable way. Trying to, to keep our compromises in the international level, of course, with the Paris Agreement, the Agenda 2030, in the case of the European Union, the European Climate Law, the European directives. The recent one is regulation about soil, European Green Deal, Farm to Fork strategy, Fit for 55. In the last 3 or 4 years, the European Union has produced a lot of strategies and regulations concerning climate, concerning environment, and concerning specifically how agriculture can deal with the climate change and how we can contribute to these ambitious targets in reducing emissions. Of course, agriculture has to face a lot of challenges from the point of view of is the economical sector more affected by climate change, of course. And we are seeing, in Spain, we have seen the last 2 days very dramatically with 2 really dry years, more or less the same in all the Mediterranean area. We are dealing with a very difficult situation from a climate point of view. Droughts, heat waves, or floods in the last months, and I think we have to translate the message that agriculture can be part of the solution, because many times the citizens look at agriculture like the source of the problem. I was telling some journalists at the doors some minutes ago, how can agriculture reduce their emissions of GHG or so on? And I told them that, of course, agriculture can, but of course, we have to eat. So we have to balance both things and look at the agriculture like a sector that, of course, is part of the cause, but can be part of the solution. And we have seen with the previous presentations, my colleague José Luis Gabriel from the INEA has explained many things that can be done related with crops and how to manage crops and to manage carbon and nitrogen and so on. Dos. Gracias. And I will have a very quick view about the national regulatory framework. Of course, to deal with this subject, we have from the ministry and from the policymakers' point of view, we have two tools. One, of course, the regulatory ones, and the others, the incentivatory ones. We have to manage both because both are necessary. Of course, we have a national regulatory framework that is like a big umbrella, is the Climate Change and Energy Transition Law. It is transversal to all economical sectors, all transport, industry, energy, houses, everything. Our National Integrated Energy and Climate Plan, that is also something that is transversal, but agriculture is included in that plan too. The National Climate Change Adaptation, this is the other part. How can we adapt to the current situation, what is happening just now? And a strategy of just transition and a long-term decarbonization strategy 2050 to reach climate neutrality. As I said, they are big laws and strategies, quite large, quite transversal, and they have a clear objective, a clear target for 2050, the climate neutrality by 2050, and with the 100% of the energy system from renewable sources. This is the two main objectives, and they are affecting to all economical sectors to reach this target. And we have intermediate targets in 2030. For example, 23% of reduction of GHG emissions compared to 1990, 42% of final energy consumption from renewable sources, 74% electricity generation from renewable too, and 40% improvement of energy efficiency. Is like to give us just some numbers of this law and strategic. And what about specifically agriculture and emissions from agriculture? Here I have some figures because you always have figures when you go somewhere to speak. Everybody is expecting you to give figures. So this is the data from Spain about by activities, what's the share of different sectors in these gross greenhouse gas emissions. We have transport on the top, industry afterwards, and agricultural sector in the third position, with 11.9% of the share to the gross greenhouse gas emissions. Others, electricity generations, fuel consumption, waste, and so on. And from this 11.9%, livestock represents 75%, and the rest is the agricultural sector, agricultural production. By gases, of course, carbon dioxide is the first one, 79.7% of GHG emissions, followed by methane. And of course, we have ammonia too. Of course, ammonia is not a greenhouse gas, but it is a pollutant one. So I always talk about ammonia because in this case, agriculture is the first cause of ammonia emissions. 96.7% of total ammonia emission is caused by agriculture and by livestock production, with this share that you are seeing there, 50 and 46.5%. In livestock, mainly because manure management, so it's related to livestock production too. And here you have more figures. I will go through it very, very quickly. about the share of different GHG emissions and pollutants, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and others. And the agriculture, of course, represents 62% of methane emissions. That is one of the main GHG in agriculture, mainly from enteric fermentation, from ruminants, 41.5%, manure management, 20%, and rice cultivation, only 1.1%. You have there all the figures. Regarding methane, that I think is one of the most important GHG for agriculture and livestock. In 2021, our figures published in 2023 are what you are saying there. They are mainly caused by enteric fermentation, and as I said before, cattle 71% and sheep 19%. Of course, it is the focus in the ruminants, but when we go to manure management, then the main role is for pigs, because pig manure is the most used in fertilizing in our country. Of course, you know, Spain is a leader in pig production, so it's one of the main manure used in fertilizing in our country. So in this case, pig is 75% when we are talking about manure management. So this gives us more or less the idea of the action we have to take to deal with this problem, because we have, I think, very accurate data. And I've heard this morning about talking about data. You know, for us it's very, very important, and I think we have a good luck because we have a very good, inventory of GHG. I will go after a little bit more detail about it, and I think we work with very good data when designing policies or designing incentives or whatever. In the case of nitrous oxide, you have here the data of 2021. In this case, agriculture is the main source of the emissions, 67.2%, followed by energy, waste, and industrial processes. And in a case of agriculture, the soil, the agricultural soil is the main source of emission, 51.7%, followed by manure management and waste burning, prune mainly, that is, burn and country. And this is what I was talking about, the inventory, because it's very important to have a good inventory of emissions. GHG and other pollutants is a very good thing, and it's a responsibility of our ecological transition minister. But we are very close collaboration with them, because many of the data comes from our data of agriculture and livestock production. So we'll have this inventory of emission with a tier 2 approach regarding the United Nations, methodologies. So it's a good work, I think. And the data taken into account in this inventory are, in one hand, we have the nitrogen and phosphorus balance that is calculated with this. You can see there in this. These are some guidelines that are published by our ministry. We have them for all the spices, and these guides that are called the technical basis for the calculation of the nitrogen and phosphorus feed balance. This is a very, very, accurate work that gives us the exact idea of this balance for each animal category, each province, each year, according with the local conditions of our country. So it's not data of other sources, bibliographic sources of other countries or the FAO or whatever. No, they are our own calculations with our own numbers and formulas to reach this nitrogen and phosphorus balance for our livestock production. So we have, of course, the population, the number of animals. We have registered in our country in an official register every single animal of every single farm in our country. Of course, we have these emission factors that are calculated in this way for each animal category, each province, each year. And we have to subtract. We have, these things, they are plus and the other are minus. The best available techniques that are used in farms, because they make a very good work for reducing emissions. But if you are not able to have exactly the reduction that one BAT provides to a farm, you cannot put that into the inventory. So that has been the last step we have taken in the last years, is to know exactly the best available techniques that are used in every farm. I think this is quite important. So we have, with all this data, we have in one hand potential measures for mitigation. All of you know many of them. We have, with this potential, what measures have we adopted in our country and how to account for the implementation of the mitigation, how to take the data, the exact data of how these technologies reduce emissions in our country. Of course, the technologies are well known. We know that those published by FAO related to methane emissions in livestock and rice systems. This is a publication from 2023. They are always giving us clues about the best techniques to be used in animal breeding and management, in feed management, diet formulation and precision feeding, forages, rumen manipulation, mitigation strategies for methane emissions for animal housing, manure management, land application. Of course, there's a huge list of technologies that can be used at an international level. Also, in a European Union level, we have, some guides too, how reduce methane. This is a work of the Animal Task Force of the European Union. It was published in 2023 too. In the short term, lifetime efficiency, feed additives, changes in manure management, changes in animal diets. I think everything is invented. We are not inventing anything. So everything is there. What we are doing is trying to put it on the ground in the local conditions of our country, telling to the farmers and trying to keep data of how either are they working with it and what are the results. I think that's the key question. So we have done this through, of course, regulatory measures. We are administrations, we have to make regulatory measures. So we have, of course, this National Integrated Energy and Climate Plan that is transversal, but we have in the agricultural sector 3 blocks of regulation that I think they are very, very interesting. The strategic plan for the common agriculture policy, one royal decree or one piece of regulation that was published last year and regarding to sustainable nutrition in agricultural soils related to how to fertilize. That is very important to avoid emissions and, of course, avoid a contamination or pollution of water also. And related to livestock, rules to make farmers implement BATs, best available techniques, for their farms, and to have at national level a register, a record of what BATs are using each farmer. They declare their BATs every year to a centralized register. I will go deeper if you want after. We have it for pigs from 2020, poultry from 2021, and bovine for 2022. And now we are starting to register this data because there was some transitional periods to people get ready to do it. Of course, we have support measures. We have funding from the Recovery, Transformation and Resiliency Plan. We are doing an important effort economical to support investment in farm structures. For example, improving manure management, manure, I don't know the word now in English, how they keep their manure, in their farms. And of course, very, very important, precision farming, how to apply manure in the soil, in the fields, and how do you manage fertilizers in general to use exactly the necessary dose and not more. Other fundings, more transversal for circularity, renewable energies, and investments in the second pillar of the CAP. Investments in farms too. And we are, as I said, we are working with our main concerns, that is methane, how to reduce methane. And of course, we have to work in enteric fermentation, knowing that you can stop enteric fermentation. So it's, of course, you have to try to reduce a little bit, but it's something that is natural. You can't stop that. And you can do changes in animal diets, and you can make quite big changes in manure management. But with one thing very clear, we cannot compromise the productivity or rentability or, or competitiveness of our farms. That's a very, very important question for us. Enteric fermentation, as I said before, there's no technologies to reduce to zero. That is something we have in mind. So we are focused in BATs, in best available techniques. In this, in this list, you are seeing multi-phase feeding, better quality diet, improved digestibility for the forage feed additives, keeping in mind that in the European Union, we have only one approved because the regulation in the European Union is quite slowly for these things. There's others not approved in the European Union. Increased forage concentrate ratio. This is our list. It is published in our webpage, so farmers can know the list and can know how it is converted in a quantity of reduction of methane. So they know their own contability of emissions. And manure management, in this case, as I said before, is more focused on pigs. And we have this list of best available techniques that farmers can know, and they are obliged to use at least one or two, depending on the size of the farm and so on. We have the frequent emptying of pits, anaerobic digestion for on-farm energy use, solid liquid separation, composting, additives again. That is our, our something in which the European Union is failing. And these ones are applied in pigs and poultry, mainly, this list. And how to account, as I said before, for us is very, very important to know the data, the figures. What are we reducing exactly? We, the administration, of course, the ministry, but the farmers itself. They have, the right to know that doing this, they are reducing this quantity of emissions in their own farms. So we have this legislation about bats, and we have a computerized system that is called EcoGAN, that is, a database which once a year every farmer gets into and fulfill, a questionnaire about the way they are feeding animals, the way they are covering, their manure, the way they are using it in the soil, the way, many, 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 many questions. For them, they are too much, of course. But this system leave us or allow us to go through a tier 3 approach. So we are going a step further and knowing exactly the reduction of each farm. So it is very, very important. We have it already in place for pigs and poultry, and it will be in place for bovine in 2025. These computerized systems, I mean. In this system, data are declared by farmers. There's a number of mathematical operations that are made with this, algorithms that are elaborated by our inventory system. So they are official, based in the IPCC panel of the United Nations. And then we obtain the nitrogen and phosphorus balance. We estimate the emissions and we translate that figures to the national inventory system. Data are harmonized, and there we have this report of BATs, and we can give back the farmer the information of his or her own farm. Based on our experience, some lessons learned. There's still work to do, of course, always is still work to do, but, we have to include more new approved BITs, new best technologies, because we don't have nowadays an accurate value of their capacity of reducing emissions. So we have to estimate some of them. I'm thinking, for example, in cattle, there's very few BATs in cattle that are really, tested by international organizations. And so in pigs and poultry, we have more. We have to identify new BATs to reduce methane emissions. And we have to work a lot in soil carbon sequestration, as José Luis said before. We are working, but we have less data. So we have to know exactly the capacity of carbon sequestration of our soils. And of course, the environmental role of extensive livestock system must be considered. We don't know now figures about exactly how can this data get into the inventory? Yes, because there's a lot of bibliography and publications, but we need, formulas and data that we can put into one machine and obtain data. And the other important part is the soil and the act of fertilization. And here we have this royal decree, this piece of legislation that was published last year on sustainable nutrition in agricultural soils. That is, for all farmers, excluding forestry and excluding family orchards, but with two objectives. to reduce fertilization and increase, in this sense, environmental protection, but increase agricultural production, not jeopardizing our productivity. It's very, very important for us. Yes, I'm finishing. Thank you very much. And this tool has two main tools. The first one is what we call the farm notebook. Is, you know, a field book where the farmer has to enter to record all activities providing nutrients and organic matter in his farm. At the moment, it's still on paper. The idea is that next year it will be electronic too, as I said before, with farmers in the, you know, in livestock and production, because it would permit us to put those data in the inventory, you know, in the national inventory. And as I said, the farm notebook and the fertilization plan. Fertilization plan is something that a farmer has to do every year, or not every year, when it's needed, and it's based. He has to make a nutrient balance. What is a nutrient balance? What are the needs of his or her crops, for achieving the local average yield? That's the N. The availability of nutrients in his soil and in the water he's using for irrigation, because many times there are nitrates and so on in the water. And with these two data, to obtain the quantity, the dose, the moment, the product, the applying method, and the best practice to fertilize. And this must be done with the help of advisor, you know, something that I advise him is compulsory, to have something advisory, or you know, an electronic tool, some informatic tool that makes you put your data and give you the information about this coup that was. The fertilizing plan, of course, as I said, is what we call a fertilization consultant. It is compulsory to come with the service of one, or an electronic one, you know, it's possible too. And there's some exceptions. Farms, the little farms, they don't have to have all these fertilizing plan. And this advisor, as I said, approved by the competent authority. And this fertilizing plan, in the Royal Decree, there's a lot of things that the fertilizing plan must take into account, you know. And these are the dates of entering into force of the different, in this moment, it will be electronic, I guess. And these are my final considerations. This is my last one. Of course, fertilizing is for us is really, really, really important. Of course, for agricultural productivity and for protection of environment too. This regulation, of sustainable nutrition of soils, is part of a bigger, you know, more ambitious legislative package. It must be combined with precision agriculture. For us, is very, very important. So we are supporting investments in precision agriculture. It is necessary to reduce water pollution by nitrates. We have really a real problem, a big real problem in Spain of water pollution, of course, to reduce gas emissions. And this is like, you know, a message for agricultors, for farmers. It's a commitment, of course, it's board coast, it's all these things, but it's an opportunity, because if you make a fertilizing plan, if you have an advisor for fertilizing, if you make numbers, you can save money. So we are seeing how making fertilizing plans making these, these numbers in your farm book and so on, save money too for farmers. So thank you very much. And if you have questions, I will please